10.6 in your big ideas, page 442. And as I talked about in class, you read the very top of page 442, but you're not going to have to write anything down because as you can see, I put a ton of information in your notes. A lot of sentence frames, which you just have to fill in the stuff. Please understand, you do not have to have all that memorized. When we're done with this first video, this is what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to identify if a sample is biased or unbiased. That's the first video. Our second video, we will determine if a sample can be used to draw conclusions and make predictions. So this is what we're going to concentrate on, even with all of that information that we'll be talking about. Our essential question: how can you determine whether a sample actually accurately represents a population? So, ladies and gentlemen, a ton of stuff to talk about. Let's just get real busy. I'm going to read through it and put in the words, and you just have to write them in, and we'll talk about it in class, and it will all be good. A radio station cannot survey everyone in the listening area. It's impossible. Okay, so a smaller group called a sample is chosen. A sample is representative of a larger group called the population. Okay, for a sample to be valid, it has to be representative of the entire population. 3 ways to pick a valid, unbiased sample are. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ross made a mistake, so I'm going to ask you to squeeze a couple things in right here. There are actually 3 things that make a sample valid. The first one, yes, it has to be representative of the population. That is important. So I need you to squeeze in here, right here, and I need you to draw an arrow. I need you to squeeze in. The second thing, it has to be large enough. Okay, it's got to be large enough to represent the population. And lastly, the third thing is it has to be chosen, the survey has to be at random. Okay, everybody or every person that is chosen or whoever or whatever is surveyed has to be equally likely to be selected. All right, so there are 3 types of unbiased samples that are representative, large enough, and at random. And they are, the first one is called a simple random sample. The first one is called a simple random sample. It is a sample where each item or person in the population is as likely, we just talked about it, is as likely to be chosen as any other. And the example, each student name is written on a piece of paper. The names are placed in a way that they can be drawn randomly without looking. What do we do? How do I use that one in class? To call your names when I ask a question. That's right, I have your name cards, and everyone is equally likely to be chosen. That is a simple random sample. The second one is called a stratified random sample. And in a stratified random sample, the population is divided into similar non-overlapping groups. Okay? A simple random sample is then taken from each of those groups. An example, students are picked at random from each grade level of a school. Okay? And stratified means non-overlapping. Okay? In other words, I wouldn't take a survey to represent the school from this class and then later go to the choir class and do another sample where there might be some more of you in there and you get to duplicate. That's overlapping. Our third one is called a systematic random sample. And in a systematic random sample, items or the people are selected according to a specific time or item interval. An example of that is from an alphabetic list of all the students at the school, every 20th student is chosen. Or I might stand in front of the door of the cafeteria and select every 5th person that walks by, or every 10th person, etc., etc. Now, we also have biased sampling. We just talked about unbiased and 3 ways to have unbiased samples that are valid. Now we have the biased samples. In other words, samples where one or more parts of the population are favored over others for things like convenience or for other things like voluntary. In other words, they can be manipulated. All right? So, there's 2 ways to have biased samples, and I mentioned both of those to you already. The first one being a convenience sample. In other words, this includes members of a population that are easily accessed. Example, to represent all the students at the school, the principal only surveys the student in our math class. And I don't know why that C is on there, but I apologize for that typo. But you wouldn't use just our math class to represent all the students at the school. That would be a convenience sample. And the other one is going to be a voluntary sample. A voluntary sample is a sample which involves those who want to participate in this sample. Examples: students at a school who wish to express their opinion are asked to come into the office after school. Well, that's voluntary. And then on top of that, maybe some kids who want to express their opinion can't come after school because they got to hustle to the bus, so they can't make it. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's just use a few examples to identify biased and unbiased samples. The first one, you want to know the number of students in your classroom who do their homework right after school. You survey the first 10 students who arrive in the classroom. So let's talk about what's my population. Remember, a population is the entire group that we want to talk about. And our entire group here would be what? What is the population? That's right, it's our classroom. All right? And then the sample is part of that population. So what is the sample in this situation? That's right, the first 10 students. All right? And then we want to know, is this a unbiased sample? Is this good? Is it representative? Is it large enough? And is it at random? And of course the answer is yes, it is. It's all three of those. And if you were to actually put a name to it, we could call it the simple random. When we talked about the three kinds, this would be more of the simple random. All right? Moving right along to number 2. To determine whether the students will attend a spring music concert at the school, Ashley surveys her friends in her math class. So what is the population now? Is it the math class? No, it's the school. It's all students at the school, right? And the sample of that would be what? The sample of the survey would be the math class. Oops. Whoop. Little bit of misspelling there. Math class. And is this sample unbiased? No. This is a biased sample. Because she did something called convenience. She just said, hey, I'm in math class, I'm going to survey my math class. Make sense? Moving right along, we have 3 more. To evaluate the quality of the cell phones, a manufacturer pulls every 50th cell phone off the assembly line to check for defects. Is this an unbiased sample? And the answer to that is yes. Does anybody have a guess on which type of unbiased sample it is? That would be absolutely correct if you said systematic. Okay? It is a systematic. That is because it is at random, every 50th. Remember the time interval for systematic, etc., etc. It's going to be large enough, and it's going to represent the population of the cell phones. Number 4, to determine what people in Arizona think about a proposed law. 2 people from each county in the state are picked at random. Is this biased or unbiased? And explain. And in fact, this is an unbiased. It is an unbiased sample. And why would that be? This would be stratified. If we went back to the types of unbiased samples, because we are doing what? We're dividing into separate groups and then and representing the entire state, because we're choosing every single county, and then we're picking 2 people at random from every single one. And moving right along to our last example. To determine if the oranges in 20 crates are fresh, the produce manager at Fry's takes 5 oranges from the top of the first crate off the delivery truck. Is this biased or unbiased? Hopefully you recognize that this is a biased sample. Again, it is going to be a convenience. Because he doesn't want to dig through every single crate, he only takes off at the top of the first one. Not a good way to survey the freshness of all the oranges. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, you might want to hit the pause button so you can answer these 2 quick rights. Trying to make this video as short as possible, yet give you plenty of information Remember, you don't have to have it all memorized. When you're done with these two and determining whether they are biased or unbiased and explaining, then take a quick break and come back and see us for video number 2.